Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, fire danger. Again, not much change here. Still dry up over the northeast there, Copper River, or the, not down here, up there over the Yukon Flats, there at the Porcupine River, up to the southern slopes of the Eastern Brooks Range, and still here on the North Slope area. Although back to the west, cooler conditions, clouds, a little moisture back there, so not too bad in that area, although expanding another day in the 70s, central and eastern areas, but looks like some moisture coming on in, dropping on down, so this will probably improve during the day tomorrow with more clouds, higher humidities, and maybe even some precipitation moving into the area. Today's satellite imagery showing a pretty good storm actually for this time of year off the southeast coast west of the Queen Charlotte's, wound up pretty well moving northward. That brought the gusty winds and rain, particularly to western Dixon entrance and up along and off the coast of Prince of Wales Island. First front, or the main front, well inland to Canada, up to the north there, coming across Yakutat with the rain, and another shot rolling in there with the main low center itself. Again, mostly along the south coast from about Cape Edgecombe on down, feeling the main effects of that, but that'll be slowly moving in over the next 24 hours. Otherwise, clouds with some scattered showers here across southern Alaska, clearing out pretty good down the Kenai Peninsula and southern Cook Inlet areas here, then back into the clouds, Kodiak, and a weakening frontal system, or actually today just really a trough. The front that moved into the interior yesterday came to a screeching halt, stalled, and has just been weakening in place ever since. Still a lot of clouds here from Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, but a split in the flow in the jet stream carrying the main bulk of the moisture on down to the southeast, already well south of the peninsula here, just some lingering showers, and a weaker southerly flow pulling that northern area up to the north. A little more in the way of significant precipitation up in that area than there was down to the south today. Otherwise, the sunshine there, eastern North Slope, dry conditions out to the Arctic coast, eastern Arctic coast as well, and clouds here through the Tanana Valley, along with afternoon showers and scattered to isolated thunderstorms developing in that area. You can start to see how they build with a whiter top showing up here in the latter frames. Last frame here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. That's continued central eastern interior into the later part of the afternoon Saturday. Otherwise, mostly cloudy here, a lot of clouds bearing straight on down along the coast, but some breaks out to the west. Still a lot of low clouds and fog out there. And then a pretty impressive cloud shield with the next system pushing into the northwest Bering Sea there as the main low center back over the Russian Far East. And a warm front extending down to the Adak area right through here, just kind of really not moving eastward too much, more of an advance to the northeast and east-northeast over the northern area. And rolling that one more time, you can see this moisture slipping on down to the south. New low forming as that thing crossed the Alaska Peninsula, kind of kicked in a circulation there, roughly, well southeast of the peninsula. Won't be a factor at all. That'll continue to slide on off to the southeast, leaving some scattered showers behind today with the boundary right through here, just cloudy skies, diminishing precipitation throughout the day from Bristol Bay, which right now just about has nothing at all, on up to the north to the western Arctic coast with the sunshine here back to the east, thermal low up there near the Brooks Range, and then the scattered thunderstorm activity, Alaska Range north to the White Mountains there, central Tanana Valley on east, south of Eagle. Pretty good sunshine, temperatures warming up to near 80 degrees over portions of the eastern interior this afternoon. And then this storm down off the Panhandle, main front weakening, moving inland, most of the rain into Canada. Another shot coming in with the main low center itself, but that's going to hang back off the coast tonight, roughly in about this area. Actually kind of pulls back to the west. So that main batch of moisture will kind of slip in and then get stuck over the southern panhandle. Showers will diminish though up to the north. Mostly cloudy North Gulf Coast. Showers to be just about over. Patchy fog along the coast. Same thing for Kodiak, mostly dry. Could be some areas of low clouds and fog around. Diminishing showers here over the interior areas with also the thunderstorm threat diminishing as well. Mostly dry over the central interior. And then that weak boundary coming southeast here, bringing a chance of some moisture in across the eastern north slope now. So look for the clouds to increase and increasing chances of a little moisture there on down to the north side of the Brooks Range. Low clouds and fog elsewhere up there. Lots of low clouds and fog out here over the Bering Sea. On down to the Aleutians, especially on the Bering Sea side of both the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians here, with areas of low clouds, widespread IFR possible or likely all the way out to the Komodorsky Islands. And that warm front, most of this action staying up to the north here. Could be a little bit of drizzle continuing on down toward Adak. But for tomorrow, that whole system kind of takes a pretty good jog to the east-southeast with, as weak as it is, not really a strong system, but areas of low clouds, fog, or definitely cloudy with areas of drizzle, light rain and fog here, tending to spread and increase back towards St. Lawrence Island as well as the west side of Nunivak Island, but staying off the coast. A few showers lingering up there around Norton Sound, Monax, St. Michael, those areas, maybe Nome, some scattered showers, especially over the inland areas of the peninsula. Otherwise, mostly sunny there for the Koyukuk Valley, scattered showers for the Kobuk Valley, and mostly cloudy Kotzebue Sound. Boundary right through here, pretty good chance, or at least a decent chance, definitely on the east side, probably staying about the same as what you saw today on the west side, but look for a better chance of maybe some moisture there on the eastern areas of the north slope. Low clouds and fog, but light winds for the Arctic coast with high pressure right off the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. Cooler temperatures associated with that. And then this batch of moisture is stuck right over the panhandle, so pretty good showers continue at least through tomorrow, especially the southern or central southern areas. Not so much, but probably see some showers around even up north there toward Haines and the Klondike Highway, but not bad along the North Gulf Coast. Showers, thunderstorms actually, a little bit better chance again. Possibly for the Talkeetna Mountains. I think it'll just be showers in the Chugach. Chances thunderstorms isolated to maybe scattered for the Copper River Basin. Of course, best chance up along the Alaska Range into the 40-mile country again to just south of Eagle to the White Mountains, but sunshine through this area. It looks pretty good down here for southern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula. Even northern Cook Inlet may see some sun in the afternoon. Back into the deltas, looking pretty good. And then for Monday, that system edges closer. Kind of like the last one, approaches the coastline, weakening, but still holding together enough for a band of rain from the Pribilofs into Kuskokwim Bay, northward across the Kenai or the Seward Peninsula, up into the northwest there, and a kind of an extension of moisture there with the upslope flow on the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range, but the north slope will be on obviously the downsloping side. So not too bad, back into some partly sunny conditions. Chance of showers over toward Arctic Village, but maybe VFR there for the central and possibly mainly eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, although increasing fog as you head out to the west, and then throw some rain in as you get out toward Point Lay west of Wainwright. Cloudy, wet conditions, IFR to low IFR, Pribilof Islands. Same thing for the Aleutians, lose the moisture, maybe, possibly, optimistically, you might see some clearing out there. And then the southeast coast, looking for a dry day for the most part here for Monday. Low clouds and fog, pretty likely hanging around most of the day, especially on the outer coastline. Could see some areas of pretty good sunshine there from Annette, Metlakatla on up all the way to the north into the possibly Yukon. Again, the thunderstorms up here in the eastern interior. Temperatures this afternoon for the Panhandle, not much change from yesterday. Mostly in the 50s, mid to upper, some lower 60s showing up. Petersburg, or actually Wrangell 61, and Stewart at 63, Klawock 56, 57 in Elfin Cove, and a 59-degree reading in Skagway. Yakutat 62, tad warmer there at Cordova at 64, and lower to mid 60s south central Alaska, but Talkeetna up to 70 degrees. Same thing recorded at Gulkana, and the Tanana Valley up to near 70. These were 4 o'clock temperatures. At Fairbanks 69, but Tanana up to 73 degrees, Eagle 79 degrees, and 78 at Fort Yukon, 72 back at, excuse me, Bettles, Arctic Village, same temperature, 73 degrees there at Dead Horse, and even warmer in over the North Slope with 52, or actually 65 there at Atchison, 51 over at Point Lay with 48 degrees Cape Lisburne, upper 50s, lower 60s here, Kotzebue Sound area, Selawik up to 64, 70 McGrath on down the river there, 61 at Bethel, upper 50s along the southwest coast, mid to upper 50s, cool spot there at Cape Romanzoff with 53, 56 Savunga, mid 50s there, Nome area, lower 50s at Pribilofs, 61 at Adak, 10 degrees cooler out west there at Shimia, 54 in Alaska, mid to upper 50s, the Alaska Peninsula into the mid 60s for Bristol Bay on up toward Iliamna. And the lows for tonight, 50s for the Panhandle, mid to upper 50s here for the central eastern interior, otherwise cooling into the upper 30s there, central Arctic coast, 40s out west, heights tomorrow, 50s in the west, 70s, near 70 here in northeast Bristol Bay, up to McGrath and Nikolai, and a day much like today, 75 to 80 for the central eastern interior again, with a little bit warmer here. 70s maybe showing up once again, or into the lower 70s for the Susitna Valley, Matanuska Valley, possibly the Kenai Peninsula, holding about the same for the Panhandle. Flying weather tomorrow, good VFR, except out along the west coast, it'll be marginal. IFR off the coast, eastern Bering Sea through the Strait, central Arctic coast, chance of some IFR. Marginal VFR, central southern southeast coast tomorrow afternoon. IFR in the Gulf of Alaska with marginal VFR up to the coastline, spreading into western Prince William Sound, and marginal VFR coming up northward there into the northern Panhandle, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, marginal. Lots of IFR here over the Bering Sea, but not quite up to the coastline, but covering much of the Aleutians. Anatuvik VFR either approach, same forecast for Radigan, another good day up there. Lake Clark and Merrill VFR, windy and rainy, both VFR conditions. Chance of a thunderstorm for the Windy Pass, also for Isabel and Mentasta VFR, but risk of an afternoon thunderstorm, both passes there. And for Tanita, also a risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon for Tanita Pass. Portage, though, VFR becoming marginal in the afternoon. Chilcoot and White, VFR, increasing clouds throughout the afternoon, but probably will stay VFR. For the freezing levels, no gradient to speak of here, 8,000 feet to 8,000 feet across the interior, and then 8,000 to 8,000 across the Panhandle. Warm air still out to the west there in the Bering Sea, especially over the central Aleutians at 14,000 feet. Icing threat possibly a little bit out here, really nothing significant, above 10,000 feet. And then maybe some areas of mixed icing here, again, all above 8,000 feet, becomes a little more extensive over the central and southern southeast coast there with the lingering moisture. And the jet stream showing that split here across the northern Bering Sea, upper high pressure holding, keeping it warm again tomorrow over the interior and probably the next day as well. 9,000 feet, not much winds, light and variable from coast to coast here, all the way down the Panhandle. West-southwest, 20 to 30 over the western Aleutians, southerlies 25 the Bering Strait. Much the same pattern at 3,000 feet there. Southwest flow across the northern Bering, light here to the west into the interior. Turbulence, none to speak of, possibly extreme eastern Beaufort Sea coast, maybe for St. Lawrence Island. And there's a chance of some light to very isolated moderate chop out over the far western Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with the ice edge and marine forecasts.
Tucked away near Soldovia, Alaska, along beautiful Kachemak Bay, is the Kositsna Bay Laboratory, which is operated in partnership by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. This unique marine research and teaching laboratory is dedicated to excellence in marine science and provides a place where people can learn more about marine and coastal ecosystems. Here today to talk about the laboratory are its directors, Chris Holderried and David Christie. Why is the location of the laboratory so important?
Jim, Kachemak Bay is a microcosm in many ways of southern Alaskan coastline. It has rocky coastlines, it has glaciers feeding into it, it has eelgrass beds at the head of the bay, and on the north side it has cliffs that are eroding into the bay. So we can, within just a few miles of the lab, we can access all these different types of ecosystems that live with these different environments.
So you have basically a small little world encapsulated in Kachemak Bay.
Provides a natural laboratory.
Yeah. Well, how long has the lab been around?
The lab's actually been around for as long as Alaska's been a state. It
Wow.
was originally constructed in 1959. There was a recognition back then that some of the same problems we face today with sustainable use of coastal resources, there were some challenges then, particularly in the herring fishery, and they saw the need for more science to understand those changes.
So who oversees the laboratory?
Well, the lab is actually run by NOAA through the National Ocean Service, and in the National Ocean Service it's part of our Coastal Ocean Science program. And then we're run in partnership with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But one of the interesting things is we actually fall under what is called the Center for Coastal Fisheries and Habitat Research, which is another facility located in Beaufort, North Carolina. Some people say, how do you have this connection between coastal Alaska and coastal North Carolina? But if you look at the issues in both places between fishing and ecotourism and sustainable resources, and they're very, very similar. It's a pretty easy connection to make. There is one of our unique features in the lab is that there is a whole range of folks that get to use the laboratory, both from the research side and from supporting our education missions. On the research side, there's researchers from NOAA offices, from other federal agencies, from state agencies, and as well as university scientists. And from an education group, we've got college students, both undergraduate and graduate, and school children that come for field science camps.
That's outstanding. Well, describe some of the research that's being done at the laboratory.
Well, one of our main focus areas of research at the lab is how do we provide the science to sustain coastal resources. Obviously, use of coastal resources is very important in Alaska, and so how can we support that with good science? Some examples are understanding the underwater habitats and how fish and other species are using those habitats, and supporting uses like local mariculture that the oyster farmers are doing.
A lot of the research at the lab focuses around questions about how ecosystems work. How will they change in the future as temperatures potentially change? How will they change with changing amounts of sediment coming into the bay as the glaciers retreat? And in general, why are things where they are and how are they changing through time? And the particular areas that have been focused on recently in the lab are in the kelp forests, which are extensive in the bay, and of course they provide very good habitat for young fish and other animals, other organisms. And then the extensive intertidal zones. We have a 28-foot tidal range in the bay, which means between high and low tide, there's very large areas in which a wide variety of marine organisms live. As we move into the future, we'll be increasingly adding components of instrumentation to the lab, so developing and experimenting with new ways of observing and measuring what's going on underwater when people can't be there.
So what classes are being taught at the lab?
There's quite a range of classes, and it changes every year. The big constant for the last 10 years has been the dive classes. We've trained well over 100 divers in that time. Last year there were 600 scuba dives conducted out of the lab. We have a range of classes taking advantage of the access to the ecosystems of the bay. Classes on vertebrates, classes on invertebrates. We've had a climate change class there last summer, and a variety of things coming up. Some of the classes are taught by UAF professors, some are taught by our partners at University of Alaska Anchorage, and particularly the local Kenai Peninsula Community College in Homer, and also from Alaska Pacific University.
Partnerships. Can you touch on that, Chris? What partnerships have you forged to further the mission of the laboratory?
Yeah, central to how the laboratory operates is that we do most everything we do in partnership with other organizations. We're fairly limited in our federal staff. Right now we just have 2. And so to accomplish all the science missions and the education missions that NOAA wants in this area, we work obviously with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, other universities to do the education mission, as well as local marine education groups like the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies in Homer. From a research perspective, we do a lot of work with other NOAA offices, so researchers from other NOAA offices, from in the state with the Kachemak Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, which covers most of Kachemak Bay, and with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. That's one of our big partners. And then nationally, we're working with other NOAA offices like the Office of Coast Survey, National Geodetic Survey, and other partners in our coastal ocean science programs.
How do you get the community involved?
Well, that's one of the really fun parts about where the laboratory is and who we get to work with. We do everything from, we have open houses for the general public. We make presentations out in the community. We also get scientists who come into the lab to do research to do presentations on their work, so they get wider exposure to that. We also have a lot of classes that are available for community members to take, as well as doing teacher training workshops and classes that teachers in the local schools, including local villages, can take. And then we do a fair amount of work with the local tribes from Seldovia, Port Graham, and Nenwalek. That's been primarily focused on education programs for the kids.
So what is your vision of the lab?
Jim, we're looking to continue to build the lab in partnership with all the people we work with around the Bay and elsewhere in Alaska to become the place where people choose to come when they have questions, so they want to investigate new ways of looking at coastal ecosystems all around southern Alaska. We want the lab in particular to be a place where we can deploy and test new technologies to see how they work in Alaskan conditions before we take them out into the rest of Alaska. And working from there, we're trying to get smarter about how we investigate coastal Alaska, because as you know, there are lots of places where you can't get to very easily, where there are no people. So we need to work out ways of developing instruments that we can put out there when there are no people around. We need to have ways to use the communities, to work with communities, to collect data that are of interest to them, but also that can be fed back to the lab and back to the world in general through the internet.
From a broad perspective, NOAA has an increasing focus on helping communities adapt to climate change. And so the lab is one of the places where we do the science to understand how these systems are changing, how they're changing now in response to climate change, in response to human activities and coastal development, things like that, and then how we can help communities to adapt to those changes in the future.
And thank you for joining us here on Alaska Weather Facts. Until next time.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis for Saturday, July 29th. Sea ice-free waters now from the central coast, fairways up to the north, and even now through. Still have this area here lingering, but an open area there onto the east. And of course, the forecast for the next few days, no big shift in this area. It'll just continue to gradually melt. And wind south 20-25 knots, strongest on the extreme south coast, 9-foot seas to go along with that. So small craft advisories all the way up, but not quite to the north coast there, where they'll be east at 15. Small craft advisories, at least for a portion of the day tomorrow, for Clarence Strait, otherwise 15 knots for Stevens Passage and Lynn Canal. Excuse me. And for Monday, south winds 10 to 15 all through the inside waters, and southeast, the entire stretch of the coastline here, 15 to 20 knots with seas down to 5 to 6 feet, so lose the small craft advisories. And for the Gulf of Alaska, you don't see this too often. Variable winds at 10 knots in every single zone, all the seas below 4 feet or less here, otherwise running 2 to 3 feet. And then moving on to Monday, picks back up easterlies 15 for the North Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, on into Kachemak Bay, northeast coming up to 20 knots. That's the biggest wind increase there, one of them. The other being here, southwesterlies kicking up to 20 in the afternoon for southern Cook Inlet, north of the Foreland Zone, southwest at 15 with 4-foot seas. Bristol Bay, light winds mainly from the northwest, 3-foot seas, light variable conditions on down the coastline. South side, north 15 with seas running 3 feet. And then for Monday, southerlies 15 knots here, Bering Sea side of the peninsula, light southerlies for Bristol Bay, northeast 20 from Castle Cape on up to Sitkinak, light and variable for the remainder of the coastline. And for the Fox Islands, light variable winds tomorrow at 10 knots, becoming west at 15, laid down pretty good, especially those seas down to 4 feet for the central Aleutians. Small craft advisories there west of Kiska Island to Attu. And then those fall back to about 20 knots, south-southwesterlies at 20 here, extend on in toward the central Aleutians, turn westerly for the most part, and come back down to 15 knots there for the Fox Islands, especially Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, light variable winds there west of Kuskokwim Bay, north of Nunivak Island, south at 15, turns southeast at 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Southerlies at 20 for the northern Bering Sea, otherwise light and variable for the Pribilofs. And for Monday, southwest 20 knots, small craft advisories here south of Nunivak Island where there'll be 25 knots, kind of a 20 to 25 knot wind all the way up to St. Lawrence Island, falling back to southwest of 15 for the northern Bering Sea. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, northwest winds at 20 knots, seas 4 feet, a little brisk there, west 20 on the central coast with 5-foot seas, but becoming lighter and variable southeast there from Wales to Cape Thompson. And then for Monday, those pick up significantly, coming up to 25 knots, seas 6 feet here from Wales up to Cape Thompson. 20-knot winds here, all of the west side turn southeast on the central coast, extend eastward, falling back to 15 knots toward demarcation point. And for tonight, up that way, look for an increase in clouds central east side with clouds extending all the way back to the coastline. Could see some extensive low clouds and fog out along and off the coast, but better chance of moisture now in over those eastern areas. Otherwise, for tomorrow, that lingers too. Could see some showers up there. Definitely a cloudy, cooler day north of the Brooks Range. Not much change south of the mountains there. Mostly sunny here in the southwest interior. Risk of thunderstorms, Talkeetna Mountains, but more likely along the Alaska Range into the 40-mile country like today in the similar areas. Showers continue. Another wet day coming up for the Panhandle. Wet and cloudy and IFR for the Pribilofs. For Monday, that whole system pushes inland. Chance of rain all along the west coast there, especially the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. Drying out again for the north slope and scattered thunderstorms over the interior. Let's look at the weather. Thanks for joining.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.